All right, please welcome to the top step. We have the voice of the Seattle Mariners. That's Rizzs. Rick, how we going, mate?
I'm doing fine, Ryan. How are you, buddy? Just enjoyed our All-Star break and now ready to get back to work. It's going to be a fun
You
second half.
you ready to get back to work? Are these breaks for you? You've been doing this for so long. Are they too quick, or do you feel like they're too long? You're just dying to get back and get after it.
No, it goes by too quick. It's as you know, you've been in baseball forever. It's my 50th year, 8 years of the minor leagues, 42 of the big leagues. You go for so long, and it's really not the exact half point. It's the unofficial half point, so we're beyond 81 games.
Yeah.
It could just go by so quickly. All of a sudden, you get a chance to recharge your batteries, as do the players. It's much as a mental break as it is a physical break for these guys and for us. And all of a sudden, you turn around, the 4 days are over, you get back to work. But you can't wait to get back to work because
Yeah.
it's an exciting year. Get ready to take on the Astros tonight. The Mariners are still in first place, so it goes by very quickly for me.
Yeah, we will get to the Mariners in just a second, but Rick, I got to say, and I've told many people this, and people who you've run into, you've touched a lot of people in the Mariners community, and obviously, and the national community too. It's amazing, man. I'm spending more time on the East Coast, and they all say, "Oh yeah, Rick Rizzs. Yeah, I saw him at this event. Or I saw him 10 years ago, 15 years ago." I feel like I'm like, is there anyone Rick hasn't met? But there is no one, and I've told many people this. There is no one who loves this job, this amazing job we get to do. And it is an absolute blast. I'm so fortunate. But there's no one who loves this job more than you, Rick. I'm telling you right now, man. No chance.
Well, Ryan, I grew up with the game of baseball. You saw the movies, The Sandlot, right, with the kids?
Yes. I just watched it with a bunch of 13-year-olds,
Yeah.
13-year-old Aussies just a couple of weeks ago. Some of them hadn't seen it. I'm like, you kidding me?
Really?
Yeah, but yeah, great movie.
But that's the story of my life. As a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, we were so lucky to have this open field behind our home. And my block, Carpenter Street, had 20 homes on one side, 20 homes on the other throughout our community, on the south side there. And we took our shovels and our uh, push lawnmowers, and we made our own Wrigley Field in Comiskey Park back there. And that's where I grew up, loving the game of baseball. And when we chose sides, we also chose who we were as players. I was always Louis Aparicio. If somebody else wanted to be Louis, we had a problem. But we
Right.
also had the dog. Remember the movie Sandlot, Hercules? The big,
Yeah.
ferocious dog who's always steal the baseballs and put them away and everything. They made him look to be like a monster, but he was really a cream puff at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Like he
Yes.
couldn't play. We had Mo the German Shepherd, and his backyard was by third base, Ryan. And every time our ball went in the backyard, it was my job to jump over the fence, get the ball, throw it back onto the sandlot, jump over the fence, keep playing. That was the only baseball we had. So I did it every time except one time I got the ball through in the sandlot, and Mo got me right on my backside. I was just going over the fence. I got up off my backside. But that was the story of my life. Grow up playing the game of baseball,
Yeah.
with my buddies in that sandlot. I loved it.
Why was it your job though? Like, why you? How come you were the one fishing out the
Well,
ball?
I was either the fastest one or the dumbest one. Mo was the big German shepherd, but I wanted that ball because I wanted to keep playing. The other guys weren't too crazy about going in Mo's backyard. So I would get
Right.
that ball. I could jump over a fence real easy. I was a little guy, but man, one step and I was over that cyclone fence. And then, so it was my job to go get it. Hey, Rick, go get it. I go, okay. And wait till Mo was, far enough away from the ball where I can get it.
Well, Rick, I do have to tell this story, and I hope I'm not, throwing you under the bus here, or you get upset with me. But what year was it that you had the basketball injury? Was that was 2018, right?
Yeah, because we were in Minnesota at the start of the year. We had a day
That's right.
off, and Jack Mosserman came up, our traveling secretary, who's the best in the business, and we were staying at a hotel that's connected to the Target Center, and he said, "Hey, fellas, we got the practice court for the Timberwolves. Why don't we have a pickup basketball game?" So it was a great idea. It was myself and Scott Service, Edgar Martinez played, Dave Sims, Aaron Goldsmith, Gary
Nice.
Hill, James Clifford.
Brad Adam was in there, by the way.
And Brad Adam too. Brad Adam,
That's
yeah,
right.
no
That's right.
kidding. I forgot Brad. And we were playing, and we're having a great time. And I tried to steal the ball from Jack Bosserman, and he hit my arm, and my elbow went that way instead of this way, and I
Right.
tore my bicep tendon, and it was very painful. But I did the rest of the road trip, and Dave Sims in the same game tore his Achilles,
That's
and
right.
Edgar in this game hurt his calf. It was the basketball game from hell, and so unfortunately, when I got back, I had to have surgery, and I missed 10 days. You went on that road trip.
Well, this is why I'm bringing it up, and this is why I'm bringing it up. I hope you don't get upset with me because it was a tough
No.
time for you. So I got off. By the way, I remember driving into Seattle. I just we were relocating from LA, and I just driven into Seattle, and Kevin Martinez said, "Hey, where are you? I know you're driving right now. How far away are you from Seattle?" I said, "I'm pretty close." My wife Amanda was pregnant, and we had boxes of stuff coming in. He goes, "Hey man, I need you to go to the ballpark tomorrow. Can you go on a 12-day road trip?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Oh, we've had some guys hit the IL." I'm like, "Who's hit? What do you mean, guys hit the IL? Like, what you want me to talk about players?" He's like, "Broadcasters." I'm like, "Excuse me." But I got to say, man, I was so fired up because I was like, man, I get to hit the road with the guys and get a chance to do some radio. And I said, "Oh, so it's going to be me and Rick." He goes, No. Rick's the one who's gone down. And I'm like, "No way." So I go to the park on Sunday, and I'm pretty excited, man. I'm not going to lie. Like, and again, nothing against, like, obviously you going down. But I never forget, and this is the difference, Rick, with you, and this is what I say, a guy who loves his job and really respects the craft and everything else. I get into the radio booth, and I'm all giddy like a kid because I'm going on the road. And you were so upset the fact you're missing games. Like you said to me, "I have not missed a road trip in," I can't remember how many years you said. And I just all of a sudden, it just hit me. I'm like, "Oh man, like this is a huge deal for Rick." A lot of people would be like, "Oh, I gotta take some time off. This is okay. I got a reason to stay home." But you were devastated, and I never forget you were calling me every other day just to check in. And I love that, man. Like I just respect that because I love this job so much. I love being around baseball, and I like feeding off that kind of energy. So I do remember that, and I appreciate you looking after me too. Anytime you called in with some feedback days into that road trip, that's for sure.
Well, you did a great job, and we appreciate you having around. Hopefully, that doesn't happen again. I'm not ever going to play
Yeah.
basketball again. Funny, the next year we went back to Minneapolis, and we stayed at the same hotel. And I went to the gym, and Kevin Martinez, my boss, said, "No more basketball." So I went on the court, and I took a picture of me, in defensive position like this. I sent it to Kevin. He said, "Funny." He said, "Not funny."
Oh man,
But
that was absolutely
happens.
wild. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, again, and yeah, one of those things I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, I need to take care of myself here because I think of that in the back of my mind. Anytime I'm with like young kids and they're like, "Oh, hey, can you pitch to me?"
Yeah.
And I start to feel the old body start to get out of sync. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, kids." But hey, listen, Rick, I want to get to this team. First of all, it's been, from my point of view, and you're always a glass half full guy, but the first half, as crazy as it's been exciting, but it's been agonizing at times. There's been moments where you look at this team and go, man, the potential with some of these hitters offensively. Obviously, the pitching staff's amazing. But looking back, people ask me all the time, what is it offensively that with this team that you can see from this first half and going into the second half? If you could change, say, 2 or 3 things that could make a tiny difference or just little tweaks that could make, a huge difference to this second half, what would they be with this offense?
Well, I think, one thing they have to do is, number one, cut down on the strikeouts, and that's obvious. And that was the goal at spring training. They were going to cut down the strikeouts, get more walks, but they really got to do a much better job of just putting the ball in play. I was watching Albert Pujols on the home run derby before the home run derby last night. I said, "Man, I hated a strikeout. Even if I put the ball in play, at least I was doing my job and something good can happen. You might get a base hit or somebody can, make an error. But they just have to do a much better job of hitting the ball up the middle and hitting the ball the other way, cutting down their swings with 2 strikes and making adjustments. The hitting coaches are a heck of a lot smarter than I am. These guys, they know how to hit. It's just a matter of them figuring out and getting it done because the pitching is so good. Here they are with the worst average in the American League, but the pitching is so good. They're still in first place, going into tonight's game against the Astros with a 1-game lead. But over in Anaheim, the last 3 games, they lost 3 games in a row, each by 1 run. The other day, they had the bases loaded twice, 2 guys on one time, and they just couldn't get just a base hit to try to win that ball game. So right now they just have to figure out how to put the ball in play, shorten their. So I always talk with Edgar Martinez, who is the best at that. He's the best hitter I've ever seen. Junior, the best player that I've ever seen. So I think when they do that, and they can do it, Julio being Julio and the other guys in the lineup, just doing what they're capable of doing, getting those big base hits, it's going to be a really good and exciting second half of the season.
Yeah, you're around these guys so much, from plane rides, hotel elevators, on the field, and you have a great relationship. I want to talk about that with these players because I've seen it firsthand. Do you feel like, because people ask me all the time, like, what is it? To me, you mentioned the strikeouts coming into this season. You have new players coming in, and they're aware of it, right? Like, from
Sure.
being a former player, you're aware of, like, some of the things that you want to fix from the year prior. I feel like it's a big-time psychological battle that I feel like, you get in the month of April, and they had a rough little, couple of weeks to kick off the season. Then they started getting into gear, but you feel like some of these players, and like I said, you're around them way more than I am, but do you get that sense that sometimes it plays on their mind a little bit because you have new guys come in to a team or a situation where it's like, hey, we can't strike out so much, and it just snowballs in the head as opposed to anything physically, like in regards to physical talent?
Yeah, I think eventually it wears down, and in April it got off to a slow start. Offensively, a couple of guys were hitting. Josh Rojas, I think, has had a heck of a year, and he got off to a really good start, with the bat. But there were just so many guys in the lineup that weren't hitting. I mean, I'd figure out my lineup card here in my book right here, and 8 guys or 7 guys were hitting under 200 in the early part of the year.
Yeah.
So I think it just wears on you mentally. Cal Raleigh, who I just love this kid. He is so good at what he does. He's going to be an all-star for many years to come. I think he said it best a couple of days ago. It has been frustrating offensively because they know they can do it. We saw glimpses of Julio, toward the end of the first half of the season. He said it's got to come from us inside that clubhouse. It's up to us to get the big base hit. We have to be accountable. And I'd love to hear stuff like that. And all those guys are trying. They're trying really hard to get things turned around. The pitchers have not complained one bit. I mean, when Felix was here, remember all those great games, Ryan, that he had 8 innings, 1 run or less, never said a word about the lack of offense. Mariners just can't score any runs for Logan Gilbert. Otherwise, he'd have about 7 or 8 more wins on the season. He just goes out there and does his job. He pitches like crazy. So do the other guys in the rotation. We'll talk about the pitching. But it's got to be frustrating for these guys because they can do it. And it's just a matter of going out there and putting the ball in play.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Now, I did mention the fact that you're around these players a ton. One thing I noticed with you, Rick, is, again, like I said, like I've learned so much from you in regards to the broadcasting aspect of things, and you've helped me out a ton. But one thing you do so well, and I wish I had that rapport with players sometimes, and I watch you do your thing. You have such good relationship with these players, and going back, I remember it was pretty stark. Gino Suarez came up and checked on you last year a bunch because he doesn't have to do that. He's a good dude, don't get me wrong. But I've seen it year in, year out since I got back with the Mariners that players have a relationship like, you're basically in the clubhouse every single day like you're one of the players. How do you build that rapport with guys, and is that something that you seek out, or how do you develop that relationship where you can have it with players where, I mean, they'll tell you things and you're not going to throw them under a bus, but where does that come from with you?
I think, Ryan, it started with spending 8 years in the minor leagues, being with these guys every day in the clubhouse, every bus ride from Memphis, Tennessee to Orlando, Florida, 18 hours from Amarillo, Texas, eventually to Jackson, Mississippi. And you're all in the same boat. You all share the same hopes and dreams. You share the same trials and tribulations, and you go through it with them. And you hope and pray that they make it. I seen kids that were sent down. I saw kids that were released and sitting in their lockers and just crying. And you want to give them a hug and saying, "Hey, don't give up on your dream." So it's very difficult what these guys do. It's a privilege to put on a major league uniform every day. It's not easy, from Julio Rodriguez to the 26th guy on the baseball team. So I like to give them their space. I like to, just spend a little bit of time, with it spring training, then get a little more time to say, hey, talk to them about their family. Say, Ty France just had a baby. How's Luca doing? Dylan Moore just had a baby. Hey, how's Mateo doing? And then when you get to know them a little bit, they open up, then you can talk to them. Then they're able to open up about really what's going on and say, hey, can I use this? I always ask, if they tell me a story. I saw Trent Thornton the other day. I said, man, your velocity is really ticked up. We were in the clubhouse. I said, what's going on with your velocity? He said, I think I'm being used more. He said, the real reason, Rick, my wife told me to throw harder. And I go, wow, your wife told you to throw harder. I said, can I use that story? He said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So you have to build this trust. And you got to say hello to them and see them. And then you got to know when to back off, And if they want to have a conversation with you, say, how's it going today, blah, blah, blah. And then they might open up and maybe they don't. And that's totally up to them. And so when you build up that trust, you get to know them as people first, then as a ball player. Then you build this great relationship. And I've been so fortunate to have it, when I got here in 1983, and then Alvin Davis comes up and Harold Reynolds and Dave Valley and Jimmy Presley and Harold Reynolds and all those wonderful guys. And then Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez, Norm Charlton, Mike Blowers was awesome. That's why he's, working with us on radio and television, because he became a great friend.
Yeah.
So you build that relationship and you earn that. You have to earn that trust, and then we'll sit down and talk with you.
You mentioned a lot of names. Who is the guy in the clubhouse you've had some of the most in-depth, best chats with over the years? A former Mariner that you had. Yeah. You're just like, man, conversations with this guy will just top the charts every time.
Yeah, Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah. I love talking with Junior, and he used to yank my chain all the time. When I'd say, hey, he'd be sitting in, I called it his throne. He had this black leather lounge chair, massaging chair in front of his locker, and I'd go, hey, Junior, can I do a pregame show with him? I'm not talking to you. I'm not. And then he'd always talk to me. He'd always. Right. So after I put up with this for years, Ryan, I said, hey, Junior, how about a pregame show? And I'm not a Junior. I said, I'm going in the dugout. I'll meet you in 5 minutes. And he would show up in 2 minutes. He was nice. What do you want to talk about? But he opened up one time right before he left the ball club. And we had a long, long conversation, and I won't repeat it. But he really opened up his heart and his soul. It was Ken Griffey Jr., the person. And there are things that Lou Piniella told me that I couldn't use on the air. I said, Lou, Sparky Anderson, too. When he ripped one of the writers when I was with the Detroit Tigers, I said, Sparky, you really want to go with this interview? He said, yeah, I do. Because one of the columnists said something that wasn't too flattering. So anyway, I'm not kidding you, about 10 minutes before I went there on the air, we were in Baltimore, the phone rings up in the radio booth, and it's Sparky. Right. I go, Spark, what do you want? He said, Ricky, can you run down here? I want to redo the interview. Nice. I said, you son of a gun. So I ran down, how far it is from the booth to the clubhouse. Right. And I ran down there. We redid the interview. He said the right thing. And I said, you okay, Sparky? He said, right. Man, I bolted. We got that thing just on the, and it was a cassette tape back then, Right. I couldn't send it like I do now to Gary Hill. But,
yeah, did you tape over the original, or did you just continue on? You just kind of kept the original on your own?
I think I taped right after it.
That's what. Oh, I gotcha. So, but that's why. But hey, Rick, that's you talk about you gaining the trust, like Trent Thornton asking, "Hey, look, am I good to talk about this?" Have you ever had a situation where they're running with a player like, "Hey, man, I told you some stuff," or "You said this about me," or I heard what you said. Have you ever had a run-in with a player like that over your years?
One time, Ken Griffey Jr.
No way.
Because I said, he made all those great catches, Ryan. You were on the mound, and he made all these incredible catches. So there was a fly ball deep in the gap in right center field. I mean, he shattered his wrist going after a ball in 1995, and he was way out there in right center field, and it just, hit off his glove, and he didn't catch it. And I said, that's a catch that Junior puts away, and I was just commenting about, I thought he should have made the catch. And anyway, he said, hey, Rick, he said, you said on the air, I should have caught that ball last night. I said, yeah, I've seen you make that catch, 100 times, Junior. Right. And so we talked about 10 minutes, and then he goes, yeah, you're right, I should have caught that ball. I said, but
Speaking of that though, when he came out, he came back to the Seattle. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
So a couple of me and some other pitchers were sitting there, and I was showing the highlight reels of him just robbing balls at center field. And he looks up at the ball. He goes, "Hey fellas," he goes, I can't do that anymore. So don't expect that." I thought it was great. Like, it was hilarious, as if to say, "Look, I'm older. Like, I'm at the tail end here." It was so funny, and it was good because, like, it wasn't this thing like, it breaks ice anytime you have that, and especially coming. Obviously, I looked up to him as a kid. When you hear that, it's awesome. So
no, he was unbelievable. The catch he made at Yankee Stadium, robbing Jesse Barfield, what would have been his third home run, was unbelievable. Racing into Death Valley, putting his right foot on the wall, jumping over the fence, and making the catch and bringing it back. The smile on his face, he was the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, you mentioned when he left. I was there when he left, and I know a lot of people watching, listening, are probably dying to know what he talked to you about days before he left. But seeing him come back and being a part of the fabric here with the Mariners was huge. I remember he left, and I wasn't sure when he was going to come back, because he retires, and I get it. A lot of the players like Ken Griffey, they want to step away from the game. But watching him come back and being part of everything he's done Major League Baseball, but with the Mariners community, man, it's so good to have him back when they can get him back. That's for sure.
Yeah, T-Mobile Park is definitely the house that Junior built.
Yeah,
He had the great games in '95, and the great success, and Edgar Martinez, the double that Junior scored on. Joey Cora scored from third, Junior scored from first base. Without Ken Griffey Jr., we wouldn't be here. We just had the Major League Draft about a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget Roger Youngward, our director of scouting, and Dick Boulderson, our GM of the club. They wanted to draft, Junior, the 17-year-old high school kid out of Moeller High School in Cincinnati. The owner of the team at the time wanted us to sign Mike Harkey, a college pitcher out of Cal State Fullerton, for $100,000, and Junior, I think, wanted $160,000, back then. And they put their jobs on the line. And thank God we drafted Ken Griffey Jr. with the first pick in 1987. Wow. Yeah.
And man, that's amazing. I just watched Travis Bazzana, the young Australian, go first pick overall, who knows what his career is going to turn into. You just never know. It's crazy. And Mike Harkey was a pitching coach of mine, and he's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, but man, you're talking about it's crazy that one conversation in that room that says, "Hey, look, we can go this way or that way." Could you imagine if Ken Griffey Jr., his name was not called? The history of the Mariners, who knows where they would be? I mean, with everything you just said. But I want real quick, Rick, before I let you go, I do want to ask you, give me 3 predictions, if you can, for this second half of the Seattle Mariners. Give me 3 good things that you're hoping to see, and you're kind of looking into a crystal ball that you anticipate is going to happen here with this team.
Number 1, Julio is going to be Julio. This kid has so much talent. I got to remind myself he's only 23 years of age. He's a 2-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger Award, American League Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He's going to figure it out. He's going to get going. Julio's going to have a great second half of the season. That's number 1. I think the rest of the guys offensively are going to pick it up as well. And then now you're going to see a 3-headed monster in the bullpen. You got an All-Star in Andres Munoz. You have Ryan Stanek, who I think has been godsend since the Mariners got him, prior to the season, and now Gregory Santos. So you got those 3 guys at the back of your bullpen. The Kansas City Royals, they went to back-to-back World Series in 2014 and 15. They won it in 15. They had Davis and Holland and Kelvin Herrera. But the offense is going to get going. Cal Raleigh I just love this kid from both sides of the plate. He's going to hit a bunch more home runs. But I think you're going to see a much better offensive ball club. Scott Service has done an amazing team managing this club. There's been a lot of ups and downs offensively. They're going to figure it out. I see this ball club doing much better offensively in the second half of the season. The pitching is amazing. The Rock leads. He's the lead dog. Luis Castillo. Then you have all that talent. You got the All-Star in Logan Gilbert. George Kirby, who was an All-Star last year. You got the kids who were high draft picks in 21, Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. Emerson Hancock has been unbelievable the times he had to come up and help out. So I look for a great second half of the season. It's going to be fun, and the Mariners are going to get the fans back to the playoffs again this year.
Well, Rick, you have got me fired up for the second half. Let's go, mate. I've been sitting at home. I've been doing this baseball camp all week. Let's go. I cannot wait. So, Rick, thank you so much. First of all, this interview has been brought to you by San Juan Seltzer. It's actually my favorite drink too, Rick. I don't know what you're up to during your All-Star break, if you drank a seltzer or not. But Rick, this has been amazing. Let's go for the second half, man. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Rick.
Anything for you, Ryan. Take care, buddy. It's going to be a lot of fun.